Anyone born in the 80s, raise your hand. You know what? 1 out of every 20 people born in the 80s has already passed away. The 80s generation is disappearing. So far, the mortality rate for people born in the 80s has reached 5.2%. Wow, think about that. That means at every high school reunion with 20 classmates, there's going to be an empty chair. This number is much higher than for those born in the 70s. Honestly, now that I think about it, I do know a few people from the 80s who aren't here anymore. Back then, statistics showed that there were 223 million of us. By the time of the 7th National Consensus, that number had dropped to 210 million. That's over 10 million gone. My fellow 80s generation brothers, I'm 44 years old. I recently claimed that over 10 million people born in the 1980s have passed away, surpassing those born in the 1970s, with a mortality rate exceeding 5.2%, has been spreading rapidly online. A February 16th report from Chinese media outlet Sohu stated that shortly after the 2025 Chinese New Year, a supplementary data release from China's 7th National Consensus caused a stir across the internet. The report claimed that by the end of 2024, the survival rate of people born in the 1980s has dropped to 94.8%, meaning the mortality rate has surpassed 5.2%. This suggests that 1 out of every 20 people born in the 1980s has passed away. The report described this figure as an unprecedented shock in demographic statistics. According to this data, China's total population of those born in the 1980s was about 223 million, but has now decreased by 11 million. In contrast, the mortality rate for those born in the 1970s was reportedly lower. In China, the term post-80s refers to those born between 1980 and 1989. Because China's one-child policy was implemented in the 1980s, this generation is often associated with this term. Today, they are between 35 and 45 years old and make up the backbone of the country's workforce and family structures. A February 18th report from China's state-run Global Times noted that the claim that by the end of 2024, the mortality rate for people born in the 1980s has exceeded 5.2%, was widely shared on WeChat and cited by many independent media sources. Some of these commentators argued that the 1980s generation has been overworked by the Times. Most public accounts claim that their data comes from the supplementary data of China's 7th National Census. According to China's National Population Census regulations, a census is conducted every 10 years. There have been 7 so far, with the most recent one in 2020. In response to the claim that the mortality rate for those born in the 1980s had reached 5.2%, Chinese authorities quickly dismissed it as false. Multiple state media outlets quoted Professor Li Ting from Renmin University of China, who refuted the figure. She argued that publicly available statistics indicate that the survival rate for people born in the 1980s is actually higher than for those born in the 1970s, and the mortality rate is far below 5.2%. She suggested that the figure may have originated from an online conversation involving AI. State media noted that while AI models have powerful data processing capabilities, their sources are limited, which can lead to inaccurate calculations. However, despite these concerns, the Chinese government is actively promoting the integration of DeepSeek AI into government and various industries across the country. The official data cited in Chinese state media reports as a rebuttal comes from China's 7th National Census, conducted before the end of 2020. These records reportedly do not support the claim that 11 million people born in the 1980s have passed away. The census recorded deaths from November 1, 2019 to October 31, 2020, showing that 193,517 people aged 30 to 39 passed away during that period. Since then, from 2021 onward, the government has not released nationwide mortality statistics. Despite the government's efforts to debunk the claim, many people online remain convinced that even a 5.2% mortality rate for the 1980s generation is an underestimate. A social media user from Shandong said, "Think about it. When I was in elementary school, I had 50 classmates. I already knew that 3 of them have passed away. If you count the ones I don't know about, there could be 1 or 2 more. That's almost 10%. A user from Zhejiang shared, "In my middle school class, there were over 50 of us. 5 have already passed away. 2 from illness during middle school, 1 from COVID, and 2 were in motorcycle accidents." A user from Beijing said, "I was born in the mid-80s. Some of my classmates have definitely passed away. My coworker, born in 1982, has also lost classmates. A lot of them suddenly passed in their 30s or 40s. We added up all the classmates we knew, and the average mortality rate is in fact around 5%, maybe even higher." Another user from Zhejiang said, "Just among the people I personally know, 3 have passed away. One was born in 1988 and passed from cancer. Another, born in 1994, suddenly passed from a cardiovascular rupture. A third, born in the 1990s, passed away from complications after catching a cold. They were all so young. The only thing I know for sure is that our living environment is getting worse." Famous Tibetan singer Anduo Luosang passed unexpectedly at 39. Wu Yuyan, a deputy director at Chinese media outlet New Weekly, passed away from the flu at 41 after being hospitalized. Nankai University PhD graduate Xu Zhaojun succumbed to late-stage lung cancer at 32. Reports suggest that years of overwork and irregular sleep patterns took a toll on her health. Associate Professor Yang Luobin at Southwest University's School of Geographical Sciences lost his battle with leukemia at just 37. Zhou Jianpeng, Deputy General Manager at Guizhou Jinsha Jiaoju Liquor, passed due to illness at 43. Assistant Dean Yin Jianhong at Peking University's National School of Development also passed from illness at 43. These cases gained attention because the individuals were well known, but the number of lesser-known cases remains uncertain. In response to the government's denial of the reported 1980s generation mortality rate, people online pushed back with skepticism. "You've been talking for so long, but you haven't provided any actual data to refute it. Official announcements can't be trusted anymore. We have to judge for ourselves." The best way to stop rumors is to publish the truth, clearly and seriously. If you don't have the statistics, how can you be so sure it's fake? Are you just making it up? The COVID-19 pandemic, which began in late 2019 in Wuhan, China, was initially covered up by Chinese authorities before quickly spreading across the country and beyond. Official data figures have been widely questioned, in particular, after the abrupt end of China's strict zero-COVID policy in December 2022, infections surged, leading to a large number of casualties. Crematoriums and funeral homes across the country were overwhelmed. Shortly after, China's civil affairs authorities stopped releasing funeral and burial data. To this day, the government has not resumed publishing these figures, making it impossible to assess the true impact. A Chinese affairs expert and former doctor in China, Tang Jingyuan, said that the Chinese government has a long-standing habit of portraying a false image of stability and prosperity, no matter the scale of a disaster. He stated that the actual number of casualties is not a concern for the authorities, and even if data exists, it is unlikely to be accurate. Independent commentator Du Zeng noted that while the Chinese government dismissed the claim that more than 10 million people born in the 1980s have passed away, with a mortality rate exceeding 5.2% as a rumor, it did not provide specific data to refute it. He pointed out that the most recent official population data is still from 2020. As a result, authorities could not effectively disprove the claim and instead attributed it to AI-generated misinformation. However, he argued that given the high number of deaths caused by the pandemic in the years after 2020, many people have been left speculating about the true numbers. Elon Musk's AI, Grok 3, is insane. I just challenged it with a big question. How many people actually passed away in China during the 3 years of the pandemic? In just 29 seconds, it pulled a massive amount of public data, built a regression model, controlled for variables. It came up with a purely data-driven result. China's population decreased by 150 to 200 million over 3 years. Unbelievable. On February 22nd, well-known independent media personality Wen Zhao commented on this issue in a video program. He noted that a social media user had limited their analysis to consumption data, which narrowed the scope of reasoning too much. Wen Zhao suggested that GDP and unemployment rates should also be considered as key factors. He then conducted his own test using Grok 3, an AI model developed by Elon Musk's xAI. Wen Zhao asked the model, based on China's consumption data economic growth data, unemployment rate, and other economic indicators, estimate the population decline in China during the COVID-19 pandemic from 2020 to 2023. Grok 3 estimated that China's population had decreased by between 150 million and 200 million. Wen Zhao described the result as shocking, stating that Grok 3 had essentially exposed a major secret and created a serious problem for Chinese authorities. China affairs expert Yue Shan suggested that the widely shared claim may have originated from user queries directed at DeepSeek, China's most popular AI model. He noted that while AI-generated answers should be taken as a reference rather than absolute truth, they should not be completely dismissed. The key issue, he argued, is that the government has not provided any data to counter the claim, making its denial ineffective. This raises the question, who is more unreliable, DeepSeek or the Chinese government? The living conditions of China's 1980s generation have drawn growing public concern in recent years. On December 3, 2023, Gao Shanwen, chief economist at China International Capital Corporation, spoke at an investor conference in Shenzhen. Based on his analysis of regional data, he observed that provinces with younger populations tend to see slower consumption growth, while those with older populations experience faster consumption growth. During his speech, which was live-streamed on multiple platforms, he described post-pandemic China as full of energetic elderly people, lifeless young people, and middle-aged people who have lost all hope. His remarks highlighted China's severe aging crisis. Many retirees, particularly those from the public sector, receive generous pensions and actively participate in travel and social activities. Meanwhile, many young people are struggling with unemployment after graduation or relying on their parents for financial support. As for middle-aged individuals who are often the backbone of their families, they are burdened with heavy workloads and are physically and mentally exhausted. On Chinese social media, many middle-aged users have shared their struggles. A 41-year-old man who lost his job and was reportedly rejected in interviews because he was considered too old. Born in 1984, 41 years old, been unemployed for a year and a half, had interviews at 2 companies today. Both rejected me because I'm too old. Every time I open a job app, I get recommendations for food delivery, courier jobs, housekeeping, security, or driving for Didi. Maybe once you hit 41, you just get labeled. These are the only jobs we're considered fit for. What are people in their 40s supposed to do? A former corporate executive, now working as a food delivery driver, earns less than 20 yuan per hour. I used to wear a sharp suit, standing in an office, making big decisions. Now, I put on a delivery uniform, rushing through the streets and alleys. There's no such thing as a high or low job. As long as it's for my family, every effort counts. Every drop of sweat has value. Hello, food delivery. First order done, 3 minutes late. Hey, hello. All right, thanks. Second order delivered. Next one, 17 minutes left. Navigation says 5 minutes. Spent 2 hours on the road today, running deliveries. Gotta admit, food delivery is a real opportunity for people like me who suddenly lose their jobs. Low entry barrier, quick pay, but I wouldn't recommend it as a long-term career. You can't rely on just grinding time and physical effort to make a living forever. This kind of life isn't sustainable. A woman shared that her husband, born in the 1980s, has been unemployed for 2 years.
Losing your job in middle age is really terrifying. My husband was born in the 80s and he's been unemployed for 2 years now. Since then, he basically sleeps until noon every day and picks up our kid in the afternoon. Recently, I asked him if he had any plans. He said he doesn't want to look for another job. He wants to do something on his own. But when I asked him what exactly, he wasn't sure. He thought about setting up a street store or maybe opening a small shop. Street vending doesn't require much investment, but it depends on the weather, so he might not be able to work year-round. Opening a store costs a lot more and he has no experience, so he doesn't know what kind of business to start. I really hope he just finds a job. It doesn't matter how much it pays, at least it will be stable, enough to cover the mortgage. But he says jobs are hard to find. Nothing seems like the right fit, and the ones that are available either don't pay enough or aren't stable. I do understand. It's not easy being a man, especially when he's unemployed and can't provide for the family. Every month we still have to pay the mortgage, the car loan, and all other bills. I don't know when this will ever end.
A visibly exhausted woman said,
我被裁了。作为
I just got laid off. I was a department head at a testing lab, working on inspections and reports. I pulled all-nighters regularly. Sometimes so busy I didn't even have time to eat. The reason I was laid off wasn't due to poor performance. It was because my boss kept pushing us to approve unlicensed, unregulated products. Some of them weren't even real products. They were straight up drugs. I'm not sure if I should even be saying this here, but I feel like if I don't, I'll be going against my conscience. I confronted my boss about it, and the next thing I knew, I was fired. I'm just past 33 years old. My child is barely 1 year old, and now I have no income. The bills don't stop. Mortgage, car loan, utilities, food, daily expenses. Every single day costs money. Being in your 30s means having aging parents to support and a young child to raise. And now suddenly I have no job. The pressure is overwhelming. This is reality.
A 40-year-old man shared that after losing his job, he feels completely lost.
刚刚去面试了一份5000块钱的工作。
I just went to an interview for a job that pays 5,000 yuan a month, and I got rejected just because of my age. I honestly find it ridiculous. 6 months ago, I was making 30,000 a month. Now, I can't even get hired for 5,000. I was born in 1984, just turned 40 this year. People say that by 40, your life should be stable. For me, it's the exact opposite. I have no idea what to do next. I majored in marketing and used to work in market research for a new energy company. I made 30,000 a month, constantly working on PowerPoint presentations and analysis reports. It looked like a prestigious job on the surface, but deep down, I knew it was just a desk job with no real competitive edge. Anyone could replace me. Now that I'm unemployed, that fear has become reality. I can't even find a job that pays 5,000 yuan. The truth is, aside from making PowerPoints on a computer, I don't really have any useful skills. I'm not as fast or physically fit as younger guys for delivery jobs. I don't know the roads well enough to drive for a rideshare company. It feels like my only remaining option is to apply for a security guard job. A vlogger analyzed the situation, saying that once middle-aged workers lose their jobs, it often means they will never return to the workforce.
现在的就业环境，中年人一旦失业，
In today's job market, once middle-aged workers lose their jobs, it's almost impossible to get back in. That leaves them with two choices: start a business or take whatever job they can find. If they try to start a business, they have three options: set up a street stall, open a shop, or become a content creator. But in the end, they usually just burn through their savings, get older, and end up with nothing. If they take a job, the options are delivering packages, food delivery, or driving for a rideshare app. But these jobs are physically demanding, and once their bodies wear out, they'll have no choice but to become security guards. Veteran journalist Guo Jun pointed out that the 1980s generation in China is actually highly capable. Many of the country's most successful companies today were founded by people born in the 1980s. ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, was created by Zhang Yiming. Wang Dao founded DJI, a leading drone manufacturer. Huang Zhen launched Pinduoduo. Other major companies like Meituan and Didi were also founded by entrepreneurs from this generation. However, Guo Jun noted that a significant number of people in this group have passed away, especially in recent years. She explained that once they reach their 40s, the pressure on them becomes immense. Independent commentator Li Dayu said that China is entering an aging society, and the impact is being felt across all industries. There is no new workforce to take over. Even kindergartens are shutting down, and many primary and secondary schools have closed. Some believe this is due to economic issues, but Li argued that declining population is likely a bigger factor. He linked the shrinking population to the ongoing COVID outbreaks and various cases of missing people across China. He emphasized that these issues have been heavily covered up by the Chinese government and need to be confronted.